Donald Trump is taking aim at Apple again. The president warned of a 25% tariff on all iPhones made outside the US, specifically calling out Apple CEO Tim Cook. Trump wants iPhones made in America, not India. Apple stock dropped 2.3% after the threat. Analyst Gil Luria says Apple negotiated badly and must promise to bring production home. Apple hasn't responded, but the tech
It
world
means
is
that
watching.
Apple negotiated badly. If right now, if you push the president too much in a negotiation, this is how he reacts, and he goes public and he shames you, and that is not productive. Apple needs to go back and tell the president what he wants to hear, which is, in a certain time frame, they can move production of iPhones to the United States. It really just is a matter of what is that time frame. Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? And what are the milestones that they can show along the way? Saying, no, we're not going to do it is not an option right now. It's not an option for other countries, and it's not an option for American companies. They need to negotiate, and they need to negotiate in good faith so it doesn't come to this.
Well, it just adds to complications for Apple because, of course, Apple has already flagged that it was going to try and move a chunk more production to India because of the threat of tariffs hanging over China. And so by trying to diversify its production base, it was hoping that it could escape more onerous tariffs. But this certainly doesn't give now Apple an exit card, and it overcomplicates the matter. That's why you've seen Apple shares fall back even further. They're down by just under 20% so far this year, underlining the production headache really for Apple going forward.
The president of the United States can do a lot of things. And it's unclear whether he would be only targeting Apple. If he did get to a point where he's only tariffing Apple's phones, then obviously they would have the right to complain about maybe not putting a tariff on phones that come from Korea. And then he could do that. We don't know. The intention here isn't to target one company. The intention is to bring production of phones to the United States. And it doesn't matter if it's iPhones or Androids. So we don't know what negotiation is with Samsung. That could be happening in the background. And it's possible the president is trying to make these gains with Apple before he approaches Samsung or before his administration requires other handset makers to move the production to the United States.
It is part of Trump's modus operandi to single out whether it's countries or, in some cases, companies for specific treatment, but then potentially roll back. He wants all to play along to his tune and his way of thinking. And this is a way of trying to extricate more pledges, I think, from Apple going forward to move more production back to the United States.
I kind of wanted to be a one-stop shop for everything about you on the phone, edit on the phone, just a bigger screen, more screen usage, I would say.
Right now, it would be considerably more expensive to make an iPhone in the US. With today's technology, today's facilities, and today's US skill level in the labor force, it would be considerably more expensive to build in the United States. Having said that, in the longer time frame, in the 5-year and beyond time frame, that does not need to be the case. Very little of the cost of the phone has to do with the assembly labor. A lot more of it has to do with the facilities, the technology around the manufacturing, and the skill set in designing the production of the handsets. That is what we've outsourced to China, Taiwan, and elsewhere, and that is what is doable to bring in the longer time frame. And if we do bring that back into the US in the 5-year time frame or 10-year time frame, the cost shouldn't be that much higher. And that's what Apple should be negotiating towards, a longer time frame that allows them to execute on getting the iPhones to be produced in the US but at a competitive price.
We've had globalization now for decades, and it's enabled products to be made a lot cheaper for American consumers. Now, if you are starting to bring back production to the United States, it will mean that the price of making these products increases because wages are higher in the United States than in many other parts of the world. And it is going to take a considerable amount of time for production bases and factories to be mothballed in some parts of the world and rebuilt in America. So the reason being is because supply chains are stretching out like tentacles right across the world. It's all part of making operations more efficient and cheaper. And now companies face this headache of what to do by being hit with high import taxes for those products that they make overseas.
It's an issue right now. It's an issue in the short term. If the company doesn't move in the right direction, it'll be an issue in the long term. If they fight the administration and get to a point where there are 25% tariffs on India and higher tariffs on China, then it'll diminish their margins going forward. But that doesn't need to be the case. If they get the administration what the administration wants, we won't get those 25% tariffs. So they'll be able to continue to build phones in India, ship them to the US without the extra tariffs until they can get production up in the US in a competitive way. So it's really up to them. And the stock is down because Apple's been humbled three ways this week. It was humbled by the progress Google is making and introducing on the Android system. It was humbled by Johnny Ive partnering with OpenAI instead of coming back to Apple. And then it's humbled again by being very publicly shamed by the President of the United States. They need to start avoiding these types of humiliations and start negotiating better.
We don't yet know whether these 25% tariffs will be imposed on Apple's imports into the United States. If they are, it's likely that Apple will in some way have to pass on the costs to its customers. And of course, it will come as other companies are doing the same. We've heard from Nike about the price of some of its products rising, also from Walmart. All of this could push up the price of goods in the United States, and that is causing more of a headache for policymakers at the Federal Reserve, who are already worried about stubborn inflation. And that could mean that interest rates may have to linger higher for longer.